Good morning and welcome back. You're still tuned in to Salam Media, your home of humanitarian journalism, with myself, Salai Lomakwidiri. The time is around 27 minutes past 9, and in a bit, we'll be delving into a very, very profound intersection of activism, storytelling, and solidarity. Joining us in a bit is Khalid, Shamis, an acclaimed documentary editor, filmmaker, and the grandson of the late Imam Abdullah Haron, a towering figure in South Africa's anti-apartheid struggle. And in light of the recent statement by the Documentary Filmmakers Association of South Africa, Khalid will help us unpack the call for global action against Israeli apartheid and the role of filmmakers in bearing witness to oppression. How can film amplify the voices of the oppressed, and also challenge injustice and build solidarity across borders? And how does the legacy of Imam Haron inspire Khalid's work in advocating for justice and freedom, particularly for the people of Palestine? So stay tuned as we explore this, I think, very, very important topic, and also understand the power of storytelling when it comes to resistance and the urgent need to stand with Palestine in their struggle for dignity and self-determination. Khalid, Jazakallah so much for joining us. Welcome to Salam Media. Really, really appreciate you giving us your time this morning.
Assalamu alaikum, Salailu. Nice to meet you.
Pleasure's all ours. I think first and foremost, Khalid, as a filmmaker and as an editor, how do you view the role of film in activism, particularly in the context of Palestine and where we find ourselves today?
Yeah, I mean, filmmaking has historically been a space of, it's storytelling and it's truth-telling, it's archival of history, it's the construction of history, and I guess underlining it is truth-telling in storytelling, and a lot of the journalists who cover these atrocities around the world are telling us the truth of the stories that are happening around us. So what as filmmakers outside of the space of in this case Palestine, we can use our voices as truth tellers, as journalists, as storytellers, to amplify the voices of those who aren't able to or aren't allowed to say anything for themselves.
The Documentary and Filmmakers Association has called for a global boycott when it comes to cultural and also media ties with Israel. What impact can such a collective action have on Palestinian advocacy on the ground?
Well, look, I mean, it's the least we can do, right? It's the least we can do being far away. You have your kind of circle of influence and your circle of concern around you. And us as documentary filmmakers who have a reach in the community internationally, it's the least we could do is to say something. I mean, to not say anything is kind of complicity in the atrocity that's happening. So we're amplifying voices around the world. Of course, us saying something here might not impact someone on the ground in Gaza, but solidarity is not to be missed. We have a history here in this country of solidarity and being supported by the Palestinian peoples in our struggle, and the least we can do is to support them. In light of the ICJ and South Africa's referral to the ICJ, we have to support that. I mean, like I said, it's the least we can do.
And just still sticking on that topic, since the 7th of October, because I think this is when really we started seeing the Israeli occupying forces escalate their genocidal agenda in Gaza and across Palestine. Do you feel enough is being done by storytellers, by filmmakers, to kind of curate and to tell the Palestinian story in a way that is easy for for people to understand and to amplify Palestinian voices because they need it now more than ever. And we are living in a time where there's so much information and a lot of it becomes difficult to filter out if it can be, you know, real, authentic news, and how much of it is fake, and it needs to be taken, you know, with scrutiny and a pinch of salt.
Yeah, I mean, if you ask me if enough is being done, I mean, uh, I think everyone is trying their best. I mean, of course, it's not enough until the atrocity stops, until the genocide stops against the people of Palestine and beyond. I mean, as filmmakers, you know, knowledge is power. And there's a difference between making a film that's a journalistic window into something that's happening, and a documentary that is a creative documentary that expands a history, that complexifies history, that debunks myths, and brings emotion into the story of particularly people like in Palestine. There are many filmmakers around the world who are amplifying these voices. The Palestinian Film Institute has lots and lots of, you know, a big archive of films, and we're constantly, as filmmakers in South Africa, encouraging screenings of films about Palestine, historical films, contemporary films. So all of this, you know, gathers together, and the more people who see them and who get a better understanding of the history of that region, will get a better understanding that, you know, what we're seeing is a total injustice.
Mm, mm, mm. And do you think now would be the perfect time? Because I think also here in South Africa during the dark days of apartheid, there was a time when you know, when you'd see old films about South Africa, it would almost just limit us to being victims of apartheid and not showing, you know, the rich culture and diversity that the country has. Do you think we are almost making, when it comes to filmmaking and documentaries, almost limiting you know, Palestinians to victims of this genocide? I know it's important and it needs to be highlighted, but I get a sense that sometimes we forget that there are other aspects to Palestinian culture and a rich history that is there to explore. And when it comes to it being documented, not enough justice is being done to it because of the current state of affairs that we find ourselves in.
Yeah, I guess this is always the role of the filmmaker, is to not play into that. You know, that, I mean, traditionally in South Africa, the role of documentary in its early stages was propaganda, right? For the miners to bring and invite miners in to work and to paint a kind of rosy picture of life in South Africa. So now we're beyond that. We're past that. But we do have those archives. We have those films. We can use them to, you know, argue against themselves. We can rewrite history. That's why we have, as filmmakers, we have the ability to write, to complexify, to own history, whether it's ours or those of Palestinians or Sudanese or Congolese or Rohingya, you know, all around the world. And I mean, each individual who's making their films, they have to really check their own integrity, right? Whether or not they're falling into propaganda, whether or not they're amplifying a voice or telling a truth. And there are many different truths, right? And as Muslims, we know there's one truth ultimately. So where is our integrity in our filmmaking from the beginning? Which is not just, you know, okay, so we're filmmakers, but there are many other voices and people around the world in very different locations who can have, you know, various other means of amplifying voices and understanding history. I mean, knowledge is power. So the more we get, you know, we understand and we can teach our youngsters, people around us, and ourselves about, you know, truths of what's happening, which is not, you know, just totally objective. Then I don't know. I mean, we're trying to work towards heading towards an ultimate truth, right? So we have to have integrity in the work we do. So it comes with research, it comes with the people we work with, where the funds are coming from to make the films, and ultimately who the audiences are. And, you know, like anything, what is your intention for stepping outside your house in the morning, right? It's the same thing as when we're making these films.
No, definitely. And what message do you have, for young aspiring filmmakers and activists who want to use, the craft and the platform to stand in solidarity with Palestine, and not just Palestine, as you mentioned, the other oppressed people of the world, whether it's right here in Africa, we know what's happening in the DRC, we know what's happening in Sudan, and, just expanding to Lebanon and Rohingya. What message would you like to give to young upcoming filmmakers who want to take this craft and use it for the betterment of humanity?
Yeah, I would say the first thing is, solidarity in network, right? Reach out to those people who are in certain situations, and ask them if they have elements or stories to tell their own stories, right? Rather than telling their stories for them. That's why we work with the Palestinian Film Institute and other bodies. We invite films, we screen their films, we have, question and answer. I mean, South Africa, there's a massive pro-Palestinian movement, so there's a dearth of people who can speak to the issues. But sometimes you're in a space where there aren't, particularly Palestinians or Lebanese or people from those areas. So now we have the means to invite people online, on Zoom, to have a question and answer, or an interview space after the screening of their film. I would say to young filmmakers, I mean, it's not necessary you have to go out there and make a film about Palestine, but equip yourself with the knowledge of what films are out there, and see if you can join with the DFA and ask us if we have links to invite films to be screened in your areas, to your communities. And we're very willing to support those initiatives and to help with that.
Are there any projects right now that you're currently working on or involved with that have a really strong Palestinian theme to them?
Well, it seems like since the case with the ICJ, there's a few filmmakers in South Africa who are preparing films around this topic. There are others who are working with Palestinian filmmakers to help them make films, as co-producers to get funding. I work with an organization called Cinema Solidarity in South Africa and Mozambique, and we basically just try to bring films to screen them in communities. I mean, I'm not specifically working on any films about Palestine, but I have lots of Palestinian friends in the region who are making films, and I always support their work in whatever way I can.
All right. I think we're going to leave it there. Khalid, thank you so much for giving us your time. Okay. And I think, a very, very important aspect that largely goes unnoticed, film and, documentary activism, and how that is such an important tool, for activism and advocacy. So really, really important. Jazakallah so much. And I'm sure we'll be chatting in a so distant future.
Okay. Nice to meet you. Juma Mubarak.
I mean, there is Khalid Shamis. He's a representative of the filmmakers and the Documentary and Filmmakers Association of South Africa, and they're making a loud call, and they're demanding an end to Israeli apartheid and stopping the genocide in Palestine against the people of Palestine perpetuated by the Israeli occupying forces. So really, really important topic, and we all know filmmaking and documentary making is a very, very powerful tool that can almost give you first-hand accounts on what's happening in a particular area of interest. And I think right now the area that needs the most attention is definitely Palestine. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, News and Views continues.
We are here in the middle of a Zahra neighborhood. The whole neighborhood is already destroyed. More than 17 towers are down. Here, as you can see, the firefighters trying their best to help. The people are still under the rubble. A lot of the people.
Join Hamza on his exclusive South African tour as he shares his personal experiences, never before seen footage, and powerful insights on the ongoing genocide in Gaza. This is more than just a talk. It's an invitation to witness Gaza through the lens of Hamza Sha'alan. Don't miss this opportunity to meet the photojournalist who brought Gaza's pain and perseverance to the world in its darkest moments. Follow Salam Media on social media pages for more on this tour and be part of the conversation.